name is Mike Tracey. I am the East Hampton Village Police Chief. I've been with the department for 38 years. Loved every minute of it, almost every minute of it, and greatest job in the world. I live here in East Hampton with my wife and children. In around February, the gravity of the situation started to catch on. Here in East Hampton, we're hosting a meeting here with the East End police chiefs and officials from the district attorney's office. And I just remember people bringing hand sanitizer and a lot of different things to the meeting. And I remember at that particular meeting, they hadn't quarantined anything yet, and they weren't calling for cancellation of events, but we were all sitting at this meeting, every other seat. So that kind of, that was an interesting thing to watch, and we knew we were all going to be involved in some aspect of this going forward, but it was a wake-up time that something was coming. Our number of calls for service here went up, obviously. We handle all the 911 calls for East Hampton, Amagansett, Springs, Montauk, and Sag Harbor. So anybody that dials 911 on the East End, it comes right into the dispatch downstairs. And as the pandemic got worse, everyone in that room that worked had to have a mask on all day at work. That was very tough for those employees, and they got to be given a lot of credit. I mean, they are really among the heroes of this whole thing. They stood their posts, they put the calls out, they got help to those that needed it, and you never heard a gripe out of one of them. And downstairs in this building, you have one of the finest dispatch centers in Suffolk County. We would get a call that would come in, and we would screen the calls to determine if there was a higher likelihood that that person may be carrying the pandemic. And they would call those calls an FC call, fever cough. So if you displayed a fever and cough, we would put the call out over the radio, and they would literally say it's an FC call. And that gives the first responder the opportunity to don safety gear, mask and gloves and so forth, and eyewear if necessary. And then later on, they would put that gear on all the time. Now, our dispatchers give medical help over the phone, so they ask a lot of questions before the ambulance gets to you, and they'll simultaneously dispatch that ambulance while still talking to you on the phone. And if you fell within a certain category, the thought was, okay, is this person going to be suitable for going to the hospital, or would they be better suited somewhere else? And then as it got more critical, there was a time that came where the county actually said to us, okay, at some point you're not going to send the ambulance in these circumstances, which then opened up another question. Are you really going to do that? And follow a script that says you need to call your doctor in the morning. What if you don't have a doctor in the morning? What if there's a language barrier? What if you are sick and we've misjudged your symptoms? So we determined, which was a very difficult thing to do, that at that point in time we were actually going to dispatch the call to our providers. Our ambulance always got notified and called, and we let them make the decision whether or not they're going to transport or whether they're not going to go on the call. That's their decision because they have a higher level of medical training. Because we didn't want anybody to fall through the cracks who was obviously in need of emergency medicine and tell them, sorry, you're going to have to go elsewhere. Absolutely refused to do that. So that was an interesting time. I think there was an overall slowing of, I'm going to say, opportunity crime here. This is a community whereby we're visited with thefts, burglaries, car thefts. Our calls involving violence are a little less. Probably domestic violence is one that seems to be constant and consistent. Probably the biggest impact in terms of the criminal justice system was the court system. That court system did the best they could, but things slowed to the point where the courts were closed, and they had to adapt. It was not easy for the courts to continue operations given the guidelines they had to follow. There was a lot of misinformation and coming out in the different media outlets, and then there was some changes in information that kept hitting the public. Public needs to see a unified government message always, and otherwise you don't know who to follow. And even if they're well-meaning, the guidelines changed constantly. For a period of time, Albany was trying to run the pandemic from Albany, and that failed miserably after the first couple of months. The communication stream to the counties, towns, and villages became muddled and confused. And I must give a lot of credit to our county executives, our town supervisors, our local politicians. Everybody pulled together. They shared information, and we ran almost as if we were the island that we are. We spoke with our business owners, and the businesses are on private property, and the owners have the choice. And if the owner doesn't want you in there without a mask, out you go. If the person wants you out, and that's going to be a situation where they're going to be making the calls. But we let them know that no one has a right to come into your store without a mask and endanger someone else. That does not exist. So we let our store owners know, we let our business people know, these are your places, you're going to make the call. If you were sitting at the beach and the sand was blowing at you and it just annoyingly kept hitting you in the face, that's what it was like. It was one sad piece of information, one annoyance, one unbearable, unbelievable feeling, just that someone had passed away that you didn't see it coming. It was a little bit of everything, all in a big face full of sand. It didn't seem real, because it's too much for the mind to comprehend. It is too much to absorb at once, and then you're on autopilot, and it just keeps going on autopilot. And at some point, there's going to be a bell that goes off in your head and says, "Okay, it's over. It's not coming back." But I don't think that day is coming. I don't think that day is coming. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's something that you didn't imagine, you couldn't imagine. It happened anyway, and we just haven't woken up yet. So, yeah.